Just to do another quick introduction to our guest speakers, Stephen, who introduced us earlier. When I was pulling together the filmography there, the two things I noticed, Stephen, is that you've got about a 60-40 split of space films to films on football. Can you talk a little bit more about your passions on that?
I'm not really a football fanatic, but I've worked a lot with a filmmaker called Dinn. Well, sports in the blood, because my dad is a football reporter or a sports reporter. But also I've worked with a lot with a documentary maker from Sheffield, where I'm from, called Nagle, and his speciality is finding the real sports stories that have a bit more to them than just the sport, like a political aspect or a social aspect. So he made a film actually that I was involved with about the drug scandal in the 1988 Olympics with Ben Johnson. And so there are things like that. I've always found those kind of films really interesting. And about 10 years ago, we worked on a film called Hillsborough, which was about a stadium disaster in Sheffield, where I'm from. It's about, a lot of those credits come from that association.
And where did your particular passion on space come from, the space side of things?
I think it started with seeing Apollo 13
the film
as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And also, which I know we've talked about, a BBC series called The Planets from the late 90s, which I recommend anyone who wants kind of basis in planetary exploration and science, watch that series. It's a real landmark. It's on this kind of level of cosmos to me, I think. And then just went into going into the working in the business, and I think I experienced the Huygens landing to a spacecraft that landed on Titan, which is the moon of Saturn, and I experienced that when I was at college, just watching it on. I think there wasn't even YouTube then, so it was like a Windows Media stream, and I thought that was an amazing story, and I wanted to make a film about that, and that's Destination Titan, which you can see there. That's from 2000. That makes me feel old. Yeah, even though I'm 37, so that's very important in the progression.
Well, as an interesting aside to that, when the Huygens spacecraft landed on Titan, it was actually us here at Tippinbilla actually tracking at the time. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was in the control room and watching a very nervous team making sure we could get these tiny signals coming back from this probe, descending them through the atmosphere of Saturn's giant moon Titan. So it was an amazing time. So
yeah, that's my moon landing moment. Is like, where were you when? Like, I remember, obviously a lot of people here who might. John, people who actually worked on this thing, but also people who experienced it. But for me, the Huygens, that was my thing of actually experiencing something. I wasn't around in 1969.
For somebody who was, is Mr. Mike Dinn. This is Mike's, a little bit of Mike's history up here on the screen. You were deputy director of the tracking station here for a while, and then you went to Honeysuckle Creek, Mike. But you kept going back as the deputy director. How did that come about? Why did so many times you left and you'd come back again?
Because I tried hard. That's how I started here as a deputy on the deep space side when we had one antenna, the SS-42. The remains of which, by the way, are outside here. Have you pointed that out too?
Yeah, behind the visitor centre.
The original parts of the old antenna. My very first mission was Surveyor, the first soft landing on the moon. I arrived here in February '66, and I was told by the director at the time, Mike, your job is to run the operations. I said, what? I'd never been near, I didn't know what a tracking station was, and so I was thrown in at the deep end, and by May we had Surveyor 1, which was immensely successful as the first soft landing on the moon. That's why I stood back a bit laughing at that last attempt to land on the moon, which fell over. 60 years ago we used to know how to do it. So I was here for about 18 months on Surveyor and similar things. And then I got asked to go to Honeysuckle Creek, which I leapt at. I'd initially asked for the job at Honeysuckle. Anyway, I was moved over there. Again, The station had been established a while, hadn't tracked very much by that stage. And again, my role was to be in charge of operations, or manage operations as Deputy Director. I've not met manned flight at all. There's a lot of similarities to the deep space, but significant ones like astronauts and EKGs and voice and the like, but it wasn't that difficult and different. And I had a very competent helper offside and co-assistant, Mr. Saxon. Put your hand up, John. There's John back there. John was the full-time operations manager at Honeysuckle. And so I was there from, well, first was significant was Apollo 7, the very first manned flight of an Apollo hardware. We joined the tracking network at that point, just as junior partners. But during that mission, I was asked, do you think we could support a lunar mission by Christmas? And I said, well, yes, I think so. This was a mere 2 to 3 months after the Apollo 7. And so for Apollo 8, first trip around the moon, we all of a sudden moved as big players, one of the 3 main communication facilities with the moon. And that was a trial by fire. But looking back on it, I was rather amazed at our confidence. It really was an earth-shattering and unbelievable mission, a gutsy mission, but completely successful. Completely successful. Oh, and on the way out, by the way, I just had the opportunity to talk to Apollo 8 for a few seconds. Mr. Saxon was at lunch, otherwise he'd have been doing it.
Okay. Right, so here it comes.
You don't hear me. That's me saying, I'm saying back to him, right, really loud and clear, Houston will be with you momentarily. We had a breakout from there. I came back with a very great statement. Oh, how's everything up there?
Pretty good so far.
The most inane conversation you could imagine. John Wells and I were trying to talk to the spacecraft and sort out the bloody problem on the ground simultaneously. Anyway, that was my Apollo 8 experience. Then we had Apollo 9, which was a very great challenge. It doesn't get much publicity. That's where the lunar module and command module joined in Earth orbit, well, unjoined and then rejoined. That was a great gutsy thing, climbing into that lunar module, had no capability to land on Earth, going 100 kilometres or miles away, and then redocking. It doesn't get the publicity it warrants, but that was only 2 months after Apollo 8. And then Apollo 10 was another lunar mission. The astronaut John Young was the commander of it. That did everything except land. We have a photograph somewhere, I don't think it's on the thing, of John Young physically on this stage. He visited here in 1994. That's when I could stand up straight on my own. That's me literally standing there. And the lunar rock is on this side. 11, of course, was our big one. We were trained up pretty well by then, because all these missions had happened at 2-month intervals. So we were learning as we went along. And this is one aspect that bothers me about this Artemis program. At best, they're talking about 2 yearly intervals, at best. And I don't know how that's going to succeed. How you retain the learning of one mission to the rest, I don't know. Thank goodness it's not my responsibility. So 11 was successful. Now, how many people think the TV of the first step on the moon came from Parkes?
So anyway,
Nobody in this room.
Nobody in this room. It came from Honeysuckle.
But Mike, before you continue on, I do want to go back to Stephen for a moment. Stephen, you just before, as you introduced our start the film today, you're going to tell us a little bit more about how those that film footage came about, how you actually found it.
So as I said, we got an email from the supervisory archivist when we were researching this film, saying that there was 160 reels of 70mm film, and that's the extraordinarily high quality stuff that you saw of the people on the beach, the launch, the the build up to launch and the recovery at the end. I mean, my favourite shot, I think, is that helicopter winching the crew. When I saw that in the cinema with Matt's amazing music there, I teared up actually. But it the answer is it had just been in cold storage, forgotten about for 50 years somehow. And I think a reason for that was just that people moved on from the moon programme, and it was also in quite a strange technical format that was hard to handle. 70mm film. I mean, does anyone here know how to transfer a 70mm reel? It's complicated stuff. So, but basically, we scanned all of it, and it covers some of the missions Mike was talking about: Apollo 9, Apollo 8. All of those early missions were documented in this amazingly high quality format. So, yeah, we were just very, very lucky in the right place at the right time.
It's kind of makes it sound a bit straightforward, but you actually had to create the machine to actually do the scans of the.
That's right. Not me personally, by the way. There is a limit to my skills. But
even though he's from Yorkshire.
we're both Yorkshiremen, actually. A company called Final Frame in New York developed a scanner that could basically handle the 70mm film, and it was shipped in climate control vans from Washington to New York. And then the way the scanner operates, although I'm not highly technical, is that the film doesn't need to be physically locked into the scanner. It can essentially ride on a bed of air. And there were 70mm scanners that could, in existence before this. This allowed us to do it all at the time frames necessary to get the film finished before the 70th anniversary. So yeah, if they hadn't designed that, we wouldn't have been able to do this film.
And it's the footage that's there. I mean, we've only seen a short part of it. You said there was 160 reels?
Well, it's 25 hours around that of the same kind of stuff that you saw there, but not for Apollo 8. I mean, I've actually been showing some of the Apollo 8 footage on this tour. Someone at NASA was thinking of the future and thinking they needed to document this in the best format for future generations.
Any idea why it was documented but just never seen?
Well, first of all, it's not completely true that none of it was seen. Some of the shots were even used in Apollo 11 of the woman with the glasses watching the launch, some of the crawler shots, and actually even some of the suiting up shots. It's quite a long story, this, but there was a film. I know we haven't got much time, but there was a NASA commissioned a special film called Moonwalk 1, which was an official. I say an official NASA film, but this was a film that was going to go to cinemas, or that was going to be publicly released, that would document the first moon landing. And they actually hired a very avant-garde director called Theo Kamaka to direct this film. He was quite an artsy, sort of New York-based filmmaker. And he hired some of the best cinematographers of the time to document the launch and document the build-up to the launch. That's, I think, one of the reasons why some of those shots are just so cinematic, because you basically got Hollywood cinematographers. And then what happened was that film was released in 1970, but even by that stage, people were losing interest in the moon landing, and so all anyone ever saw was what they used in that film. And it had been massively downgraded in quality, and so that's the only stuff from that cachet, let's say, of footage that was out there. Even to make, we're talking about technical stuff here, but even to make that film, they had to reduce the footage from 70mm to 35mm, and it was cropped, and so that's why even the shots that we have seen before, suddenly, wow, it's like we're in widescreen. It's just so much better getting to the original reels.
Yeah, it's almost like it was filmed today.
Yeah, just as good. Just as good.
Yeah.
Better. I mean, some people think that film, nothing is as good as 70mm film.
Yeah.
I think probably that's not true. No, I mean, I think cameras now are probably, by definition, you would think they would be more advanced now, but the optics and. But I think it's just something about the texture of film that.
Yeah. And Mike, we've just watched Apollo 11. What's your sort of key memories about the Apollo 11 mission?
My main memory I have on Apollo 11 was, at the time the television came on, we had an intermittent EKG from the astronauts on the moon. And,
So their heart rates.
Huh?
Their heart rates.
Yes, the heart rate, sorry, electrocardiogram.
Buzzes was 88, was it?
Well, we weren't looking at numbers, we were just looking at the data. And my worry, genuinely, was about that bloody signal. Not the television, because Kennedy's stay was get people to the moon and back safely. And television really had nothing to do with that. I'm sorry about that. So, as I say, John and I, we had all these plans and backup plans and alternates, and our job wasn't just to look at what was happening well, but to worry about what might go wrong, and if it went wrong, what to do about it. I did an ABC interview not that long ago, and the lady said, "Well, what did you really do during Apollo?" I said, "Worry." And that really sort of sums it up, that it's like being in a play in some ways. You've got a part in a play. You don't have the luxury of standing back and watching the play. You concentrate on your part. And that, by the way, is what 100,000 other people were doing. And really it was relevant to the total success of Apollo, that everybody knew what they were doing, why they were doing it, how they were doing it, and that the whole team was dependent on you as an individual. At Honeysuckle, for example, we had about 30 people operating equipment, analog equipment, and the quality output depended directly on each individual person as to whether they knew how to maintain, manage, operate, modify, troubleshoot their equipment. And I can't emphasize that too much, that the whole of Apollo, including the tracking stations, was a big team effort.
So in amongst all that worry, in the hours before Armstrong was about to step onto the moon, somebody turned up at the gate. Can you talk a bit about who that was?
If some of you may remember the movie The Dish, the notional Prime Minister shows up at Parks. Well, actually, we had a Prime Minister show up at Honeysuckle, and I don't know if you've got any pictures thereof.
Yep.
Mr. Galton showed up. Now, I wasn't aware he was coming. I think my boss Tom Reed probably was. Is this the one with John in the foreground? Oh no, that's outside. There's another picture.
I don't know if I have that one.
It's somewhere or
I've
other.
got some footage here which we might just play.
John Saxon was on shift at the time when Galton came round. I was just coming on shift. Tell us what you thought of John's visit, John.
I was very upset. We were supposed to be getting ready for the big day. And here was the whole bunch of hangers-on and everything else running around the station. It was just not on.
So when you watch the movie The Dish and see the Prime Minister at Parks, remember it was John Galton at Honeysuckle that actually came around. We somehow or other got over that.
Yeah. Gorton signed the visitor book at Honeysuckle Creek, which we still have in our archives, and sort of lovely, just his thoughts. This is before they actually walked on the surface of the moon, and he said, he wrote, John Gorton, Prime Minister of Australia, and he said, "On this day, humans first set foot on a satellite. Humanity can now gaze at each other with a wild surmise as to what the future of exploration may bring." So it was kind of nice to have the thoughts of the Prime Minister at the time at the place that really got those first pictures, of course, and have that in our archives, our national archives.
And he actually came back unofficially a few days later, didn't he, John?
That's true.
It showed up at the date, incognito, if that's the right word,
Well,
and the guard wasn't going to let him in.
That's exactly right. He's been driven by Ainsley Gotto, who was
private secretary, careful.
Private secretary, yes. And they had a good look around on that morning.
So he was genuinely interested. Let me tell one final anecdote,
Sure.
and I'll shut up. When Armstrong pulls a lanyard to deploy the television camera, from the bottom of the lunar module, it pivoted out from the lunar module. It ended up upside down, by the by, because the camera was pointed that way. But when it pivoted out like that, we were supposed to get a picture, and there was no picture. And if you listen very carefully to the air ground around that period, Armstrong comes up and says, "Com check." Now, plainly to me, I've never seen it written anywhere, com check was saying, what the hell do I do now? Because we were supposed to have a TV picture. But luckily, somebody at Houston remembered that the TV circuit breaker had been pulled about 20 minutes earlier because the camera was overheating. And somebody at Houston forgot to push that breaker in. So if you sit and listen to it, you'll hear Capcom say, com check, you're reading as loud and clear, Buzz pushing the TV circuit breaker. So we almost didn't have any television at all. How about that little anecdote?
Reach 5 clear. Roger.
TV online.
And we're getting a picture
Ghost
on
on
the TV.
TV online.
Honeysuckle video online.
You got a good picture, huh? There's a great deal of contrast in it, and currently it's upside down on our monitor, but we can make out a fair amount of detail.
Ghost on video, Houston TV.
Ghost on video, go ahead.
Can you confirm that your reverse switch is in the proper position for the camera being upside down?
Stand by, we will go to the reverse position.
Camera.
We are in reverse.
What?
Roger, thank you.
Okay. At the foot of the ladder, the limb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches.
All stations, we have just switched video to Honeysuckle.
Very, very fine grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Look, an opportunity just to open up to the audience for a few questions. Anybody has anything? Feel free to throw. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah. You had wonderful footage there shot on film, but you also had amazing stuff taken from television cameras in the launch tower. I'm wondering, was that, did you have to deal with a 50-year-old videotape to get that back, or was that dumped on the film at the time?
No, what actually, those are the cameras that were the CCTV cameras that were available to the flight control, well, the launch control team, including the guy fixing the valve camera. Was it camera 18, and then we kept to camera 18. Well, where that actually comes from is the television feed that went out to all the networks like ABC or CBS or wherever. They also had access to those cameras. So when the astronauts were going to the pad, they would then cut to that camera, and they would cut to the guy fixing the valve. And so they all ended up on the official, well, I say the official, but the tape of the television brought. And then of course when it comes to the launch, that camera that you see panning up during launch is the television camera of the launch. So yeah.
There's no record of all the cameras.
No, we didn't have access. There's no entire reservoir of every CCTV feed. It's just whatever they happen to be cut to at the time. I mean, that would be good. But,
Have you mentioned the Apollo in real time website?
I could do mine, but I mean, we've got, how long have we got? What Mike's referring to is there's a website called Apollo in Real Time, which we
All one word.
developed, where you can sort of watch the 9-day version of this film, and there's it has all the audio from all of those the guys in the shirts in mission control room, all their loops were digitised, and you can. So if you want to hear what the flight surgeon was saying on day 3 at 9:20 p.m, then you can go to that and then drop into that, and you can hear Mike, you're on there quite a few times.
More importantly, you can go and listen to the network channel, where you'll hear me and John chit-chatting back and forth to Houston. So it's fascinating, 50 years on.
Glen, just to the photo that you had up there of the guys doing surveying work just moments ago, there
Have I got some on the shelf?
was
So,
part
that one? Yeah.
of Colin's calendar photos for this year. That photo was taken at Auroral, and that was dated the month before I started work at Auroral in 1965, and that's the 30-foot, the 85-foot antenna that operated just over a couple of hills from me.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Aurora at all. We should have come up here and chatted.
Sure.
Aurora was a very, very busy site. It had about 180 people there, tracking anything and everything that orbited, including, in later years, the shuttle. And it did a tremendous job. It became, as time went by, we had other satellites that could start performing similar functions. So it was closed down when? About?
72.
72.
Yeah, just about 7 years.
Its antenna was dismantled and rebuilt in Tasmania. And it's used for radio astronomy even now in Tasmania.
So you had a question?
Just wondering if you, it was Monday lunchtime when the moonwalk happened in Australia, but Sunday night in America.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it happened on the 21st or the 20th of July?
Well, as and when the radio stations, well, they haven't done it recently, but they do come on the day early, and I have to laboriously say, well, yes, it was the 20th in the US, but 21st here. You wouldn't imagine the number of times and difficulties we had at the tracking world in dealing with time and date, and there were some genuine errors made. Generally, the whole tracking world, the whole space world works on GMT, or UTC as it tends to get called nowadays. But when it crossed the date line, life became a bit awkward. And I was also telling someone this morning, we used to have a pre-mission briefing, but we used to go into the Deakin. By the way, those of you who know Canberra, there's a small building at Deakin where all our comms used to go through. But when these pre-mission briefings, they were at 2 and 3 a.m. And so we went into Deakin rather than coming out of the station, and at the end of one of these I said to them plaintively, can you change the time of these once? So why? I said, it's 3 a.m. here. So, all right, next time we'll shift it a few hours. So.
I think it's interesting though how the moonwalk happening at different times changes the perception of how people remember. I mean, in the UK, in the US it was prime time. You know, the first steps were at prime time. In the UK, everyone remembers, oh yeah, being woken up, or little kids, yeah, I was woken up at 3 in the morning. You know, or it was the first time I'd ever stayed up. You know, because the first steps were at nearly 4 in the morning in the UK, and so. Yeah, the different cultural experiences of the moon landing are kind of shaped by when it happened.
In Australia, it was lunchtime, and because all the schools generally. My eldest son John was sitting on the floor with Brendan Smith, one of our ACP politicians, watching a 12-inch television about 100 yards away, black and white. You know.
Yeah, there's summer holidays in the UK, so no one was at school, and here. Part of the TV was wheeled in. So.
Yeah, I was 7. watching at home. Our school didn't have a television. Get just at the back and I'll come down to the front. Yes. Oh, you were too? Yeah.
No, I remember.
Yeah. Sorry, say again?
Have you been asked to put any illegal items at all? The items up on the program?
I couldn't hear him.
Yes, sorry. Say it a bit louder.
I was just asking Mike if he's had to be asked for any input towards the Artemis program.
You've been asked for any input into the Artemis missions, Mike. The short answer, no.
Oh, I'm sitting there waiting. I look at this picture of that lander, that tall, skinny lander, and a beautifully flat moon, with little feet about this big, and the astronauts have got to climb down the ladder or be sent down from the top of it. And the first time I saw that, I thought, that's a cartoon. But it's not, it's serious, it seems. I've not seen, if anyone else has seen a lander that looks realistic, I'd love to hear about it. What do you think, Glen?
I'm going to wait and see. Thanks, Mike. Stephen.
He still has a job.
I still got to have a job there. Stephen, the Apollo 11, all the footage that you found, it wasn't the only film it's been used in. And I wanted to actually just play this and just get your comments on this upcoming film, of which you are credited.
Hey, John. Evening, Cole. Miss, you're on fire.
Very original. No, I do not want to stop, drop, and roll with you.
No, your book is on fire.
Oh my God.
Alcohol and flames, they like each other. Cole Davis.
Kelly Jones.
Public support for the moon mission is rock bottom.
Every day, something is breaking. And we're dead. Again. Yeah, or blowing up.
The space program is a bloated mess.
NASA needs a marketing specialist, and you are the very best.
Excuse me? What are you doing here?
I tracked you down because I felt we had a connection.
What?
I'm joking. I work here now to sell the moon.
NASA's not something that you sell with a jingle and a slogan.
When I'm done, those men are going to be bigger than the Beatles.
Who is that?
For me, this is very personal.
He's got my name.
You told me that your guys don't do interviews, so I had to hire new guys.
I'm here for the casting. Who's he?
You're a juicy part.
60 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea.
I flew 52 missions in Korea. How's that?
What?
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians. We need to shoot the backup version of the moon landing.
You mean to fake it? No one can ever know what we're doing.
I cannot accept that.
They will shoot you.
What is my budget?
Oh, boy.
I know a lot more about the moon than I know about you. Give me go, no go for launch. If you fake this mission, every single thing that we have sacrificed will have been for nothing.
You know you couldn't have made it to this day without me.
4, 3, 2,
1.
My Armstrong is a whiny little bitch. We have to recast.
I think we should have gotten Kubrick.
Okay, please explain.
Yeah, I was approached by Jonathan Lear, who's the producer of this film in I think it was 2.5 years or so ago now, and basically saying, obviously having seen Apollo 11, they wanted access to the 70mm, wanted to be able to use the 70mm material. And so yeah, as you see, there's some shots in there. But basically, because the quality of the footage is so high, it allowed them to use it interchangeably with the stuff they filmed with the actors, and they were filming at Kennedy Space Center. And it's a really, I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely sure.
I'm sure Mike will have issues with the technical accuracy, but it's. I think they're a a great team of filmmakers, and it's a fun script. It's a really fun script. I haven't seen the finished cut, but yeah.
But you can absolutely assure us it's a comedy, not a documentary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just to wrap up on this, unless somebody has another question. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
The 70mm film that you've digitised, is that available online, or are you planning to make that available sometime?
I keep asking the same question.
No, it's not available online. The thing is, there is no. We were talking about this earlier. There's no definitive sort of outlet for it, and we're working on ways that can be, that we can make that available. And the National Archives are actually pretty slow with. I think what you find with a lot of these projects is that people get very excited when it happens, and then I say we're now 5 years on from the film, and very little of the footage is kind of out there. And so actually part of what we're doing here is on this tour has been to try and show some more of the footage. But yeah, I think it'll be. I wouldn't hold your breath that it's all going to be on YouTube.
Yeah. All right. And just quickly, was any of it digitally enhanced, or was the 70mm that good quality?
It is. I mean, it is that good. Really, the kind of things that we did as they. Well, sorry, the movie thing's a separate thing, but that is more of a case where they will have digitally enhanced for actors in the footage and stuff. But for what we did, mainly things like repairing if there was any scratches, or making sure that the colours having a nice look for the grade and all that sort of thing, but not, we didn't digitally put a spacecraft in them. And that gets us onto a whole AI sort of debate, which unfortunately I think is going to be a big problem in documentaries going forward, because people just think, wow, it doesn't exist, so we can just create it now. So I'm like, we'll go and become a narrative filmmaker. You don't make documentary. I don't think that should be part of documentary making.
And just to wrap it up with Mike, what I'm really pleased about is, of course, we have a great friend who's Colin McKellar, who's put together a wonderful website. And I'm just wondering, Mike, could you just briefly speak on the Honeysuckle site?
Yeah, Colin McKellar's day job used to be an Anglican minister, but he contacted me in 2001, I think it was, and he's come out with a website called honeysucklecreek.org.
.net.
Sorry?
Honeysucklecreek.net.
.net.
It's on the sheets I gave you.
Absolutely magnificent. He does an incredible job. He has by far, without exaggeration, by far the best information in the world on any aspect of Apollo that you want. It started out with just Honeysuckle, but expanded and expanded and expanded. He's now on first name terms with many astronauts. He calls me every other day, literally. And they called me yesterday saying, we just got a message from Apollo 13, what's his name, astronaut? It's the anniversary of the landing of Apollo 13.
Fred
Hayes. So this is a typical call, and he does it all with no fuss. And he's very technically competent, so anything and everything you ever thought you ever might be interested in, please go and have a look at that website. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, second. I mean, I think Colin and actually you yourself and Glen have probably done more to advance the knowledge of Apollo than anyone else, certainly in Australia.
I do love this photo we've got on the screen now. This is the crew at Honeysuckle, standing in front of the Honeysuckle dish, which we're going to go to and tour after we've seen the quarantine film. Mike's just standing there. But the thing I really love about this photo is the sign here saying, radiation hazard, do not stand in front of the antenna.
And the only person not on that is Mr. Saxon. He was away somewhere at the time. I tried to Photoshop him on it one time. Not very successful.
Which I'm very grateful, but Cole took me out again.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And the important thing is that there will always be people involved in the exploration of space, and certainly people like myself, Brendan, who's one of our operations controllers here today. We do literally stand on the shoulders of giants such as yourself and John and others who have worked in this industry over so many years. Would you please give a round of applause to our guests?